Okay, welcome to the StageLeft Podcast, lifting the veil on the music industry by telling the stories of those with a unique vantage point. This podcast exists to provide free educational content for young musicians entering an increasingly complex industry by telling the stories of some of the unsung heroes behind the success. So go to the StageLeftPodcast.com for all episodes featuring members of Radiohead, Supergrass, Jungle, Queen, Earth, Wind and Fire, Guns N' Roses, Fleetwood Mac, Madness, Oasis, The Zootons, The Prodigy and Kraftwerk, who discuss their writing, recording and performing processes, as well as reflective interviews with musicians and producers who've worked in the studio and on stage with the Beatles, Beyonce, Elvis and David Bowie. Today we are joined by Chic drummer and vocalist Ralph Rolle, who will be discussing playing with legends in the industry, the inner practices of working with Nile Rodgers, the secret to magic cookies, and Ralph will be passing on his wisdom to young musicians. So it's a pleasure to say that our guest today on the StageLeft Podcast is none other than Ralph Rolle. Thanks for joining us today, Ralph. How's it going?
Oh, going great, Chris. Thanks for having me, man. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. So let's begin straight away with something I was particularly interested in with my research, which was, I know your aunt played piano and your grandma sang in a church, but you started playing drums at the age of 9 because your brother owned a drum kit. And I believe, is it right that you've got quite a unique technique when it comes to drumming? You're an open hand drummer. And is that right? Because he was a right-handed drummer and you were a left-handed drummer, and you've developed this quite unique technique to play open-handed. And my question to you with that is, what advantages do you think that's given you as a musician? And has it had any disadvantages?
I don't think it's had any disadvantages at all. I think it's had some really cool advantages because my brother's an engineer now. I mean, he's retired. He's worked with not only his own firm, but he worked with some of the biggest companies designing machinery. So he's a very analytical, he's like my personal Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. And, we talk about stuff, but he did a whole breakdown and analyzing my style. And he said, when I watch you play being open-handed, you are basically approaching the drums from the path of least resistance by being open-handed. And he's right. I mean, I don't know if it's an advantage or a disadvantage. I just know for what I do, it makes things real simple. For example, when I was coming up in New York, I used to play in bands. And one particular band, I had to play percussion on the left side. And at the time, it was only claps. This is back in the 80s. So that's when the clap machine came out, so you had to play claps. So it was grooving here, doing fills, crashing, and doing the clap sound over here. And then as time went on, I started working with a big Japanese artist named Toshi Kubota. And that required a lot of triggering, which expanded my whole setup over here. And I had trigger pads over here. So being open-handed like that allowed me the ability to continue to groove, fill, and play multi-rhythmic patterns on my left hand. And it's over time with practice, it started to become very natural to have that and to do that. So I say that what my brother said is pretty accurate. Having the path of least resistance, being an open-handed drummer, has its advantages. But again, I've seen right-handed drummers on a right-handed kit playing cross-handed, doing a lot of the same types of stuff. But for me, I like that open hand feel because it's just nothing gets in the way. You're not crossing hands, So yeah, it's kind of cool. A lot of drummers have asked me to show them how to do that, And again, it's all about just practicing and putting the time in.
Nice. We're going to touch upon that again in a little while, actually. It's a really interesting area. Your childhood, who was a idol of yours growing up that was in the world of music? And actually, who was someone that you idolized not from the music world growing up?
Well, in the music world, when I first started, there was a lot of musicians I heard that I didn't know who they were because I was so young. I just loved the music. But one of the first people that impacted my thinking and approach was Ringo Starr. Oh. I remember when I was a very little kid, the British invasion was in full swing, and the Beatles had come over and did a very popular variety show called The Ed Sullivan Show. It was back in the 60s when I was little. variety shows on TV were very, very popular. It was an extension of vaudeville and having all of these different types of performances within a time frame. So Ed Sullivan was huge at the time. And when the Beatles came over, everyone was excited because it was just music. And luckily, again, my brother had exposed me to so many different styles of music that it wasn't just one thing. It was just music, that he played. So the Beatles came on, and I feel the adrenaline pumping, and the girls are screaming, and this drummer's playing, "She loves you, yeah." And I mean, Ringo looked like he was having the best time of his life. And that just resonated with me as a young drummer. And this is actually right at the time, right around the time when the drums kind of showed up in my house, maybe a little bit earlier. But I remember that feeling of Ringo just doing his thing and having so much fun doing it. So it was amazing. And even when you see me play now, I'm smiling. I'm having a good time. I'm kind of getting my Ringo on when I'm playing.
It's interesting you say that, because when I grew up, when I first got introduced to the Beatles, there was always this thing about how Ringo was kind of seen as not as talented as the other three, and there was people challenging actually the quality of his drumming. And the older I've got, and the more I've listened to particularly latter material around Abbey Road, that's just not the case. And more drummers have kind of come to Ringo's defence around that. What do you think were his specific qualities that maybe are slightly underappreciated?
Well, I don't know who said that, but whoever said that is approaching music from an egotistical standpoint, and that's not what music is to me. Mm-hmm. Music is not about ego; it's about music. There's a certain level of servitude that you have to music that makes it great, and that doesn't mean that you're playing 30-second no fills, just to impress other people. For me, it's all about impressing the music, and that's what Ringo did. Ringo was impressive of the music. He was playing exactly what was needed and necessary for every single song that he played. I don't think he was thinking about, well, I got to flip my sticks up in the air and, I got to do, that wasn't what it was. It was like, this is the groove that is needed for this song. And that's important. It's all about the service of the music. And certain music needs different types of service. But for what he delivered, I think it was absolutely perfect. Because fast forward, how many years? 60? Mm-hmm. And you can still cut on the radio and absolutely hear a Beatles song. So that must mean something, that he did something of serious importance to many, many generations. So I would challenge that statement with anyone to say that he didn't, or he wasn't a quality musician, because I think the trajectory of the group changed when he got there and just kind of woke up the sensibilities. It's the same thing with Chic. I was in one band of Chic, and then when Kimberly Davis showed up, it was Chic with Kimberly Davis. I don't know. That's how I see it. It just changed the whole climate of how the music was performed. And one musician can make that happen. And I think Ringo was that guy.
Thank you. And who was someone that you idolized that was nothing to do with music? Is there someone that you particularly, away from the world of music, looked up to or admired?
My mother. My mother was a beast. That lady was, not only was she strong, but she was someone that pushed her children to be the best that they could be. She was tough. I have to say, growing up, like most of the kids in my neighborhood, I was afraid of my mother. My mother was no joke. She was somebody that you didn't play with. So she was never my friend. She was always my mother. And I never would sway the view of what she meant. She had a job to raise 4 kids. She did it by herself, and she did a hell of a job. All of my brothers and sisters, growing up, we all became very successful. So she's someone I've always idolized, and I always put her on the front burner of a lot of conversations when it comes to success and achievability and community and kindness and empathy, because some of that, as I said, I was afraid of my mother, but to everyone else, she was the sweetest lady in the world.
That's really interesting because we have a lot of musicians listening to this podcast, who, particularly young musicians, who might be in that position where things are taking off for them, but their parents almost discourage them going into the industry because of, it's a very difficult industry. What was your mother's view on you going into the arts and potentially a world where money isn't consistent? There could be, good jobs, there could be not so good jobs. How did she support you walking that tightrope?
When I told my mother that I didn't want to be an engineer like my brother, I was going to go to mechanical engineering school. She said to me, "I think you just lost your mind." Those were her exact words. And being a parent, you want the best for your children, but at the same time, you want them to make sound choices for their lives, because they want you to be independent, and they don't want to take care of you until you're 50 years old. They want you to have a life. So in their minds, it's the safe route in some cases. It's not all cases, but in some cases. So when my mother was like, "Well, how do you support yourself as a musician? That's not really a job." My mother came from the deep South. She came from as far south as you can go, which is Miami. And her and my father came north, and she ended up having children. And I was the youngest of four. So the mentality from both sides of my family, my mother's family and my father, was about getting a job. Please understand that being Black in America then was the so-called first free generation of free Black people, which is not true at all, but that's how it's been categorized as.
Yeah.
However, when you moved from the South, where you saw racism in its true form, and you came north, there was a sense of, "Oh, we got this," because if we can survive that, and we come north, we got this. So my mother, she had a job. She never believed in welfare. My father had a job. He worked in a furniture store. My mother was a maid. She washed clothes. She ironed clothes. She did whatever she had to do to raise her kids. So that instilling of, you need a job, is what was important to her, because that's what she was programmed to do. So here I come, the youngest of four. My older sister, she works for a hospital. My brother's an engineer. My sister's a teacher. Then she becomes a decorated principal. And here I come, I want to play drums. So she's like, that's not how it goes. You need a job. So to appease my mother, I went to college for 6 months. And as good as I was in school, because I got skipped a year because I was a smart kid, I went from 7th to 9th grade and was headed to college at 17. And here I go deciding I can't see myself sitting behind a desk like my brother. He's a different kind of personality. I want to play drums, and that's what I'm going to do. So it was a sense of defiance, but also I had to prove that I was going to do this. I had to prove to my mother, and you asked a question about support. There was no drum set after my brother. He became a young dad, and the drums disappeared because he had to sell the drums to get an apartment to take care of his new wife, soon to be wife, and their child. So I was very upset that he had gotten rid of the drums. So now I'm deciding to be a drummer. My mother's looking at me like I'm crazy. I don't have any drums. So where's the plan here? So what I did is I started playing on everyone else's kit in my neighborhood. Everybody who had a drum kit in my neighborhood, I was their friend. And the main person, which is like a brother to me coming up, is my friend Artie, who lived across the street. He had a 9-piece Ludwig, and it was like my drum set, to the point that he just let me take it home for a little while. I live right across the street. But the bug of playing had bit me, and I refused to turn back, and I refused to have a plan B. If I wasn't going to be a successful drummer or musician, I wasn't going to be successful at all. And that was just my attitude. It was either all or nothing. And my mother was afraid, but when I saved up enough money to buy a drum set, I made a deal with her. She said, "I'll buy your cymbals if you buy your own drums." So I would get up every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and I would pack bags at the local grocery store. And then the other strategy was I need to be where all the information is. And this is long before the internet. So I volunteered at the local library, and I would read all the books and try to learn as much about music as possible. Then I would go down to the Lincoln Center library where they had LPs where you can listen to all. And I listened to everything, orchestral music, jazz, whatever they had, I would listen to it. Then I started volunteering at a music store because that's where the drums were. And there was a drum set there that had been sitting in the window. So my job there, because the guy didn't pay me, my job was go get coffee, sweep up, organize whatever he asked me to do. And I asked him about the drum set. It was a Ludwig Wieselite drum set in the window. And I asked him about it. He said, "Well, somebody ordered it and never picked it up. So if you want it, I'll sell it to you at cost." Now I'm a kid. I'm like 15, 16 years. I don't know what at cost is. I don't know what that means. So I finally figured out that it meant that whatever he bought it for, he would sell it to me for. So it was like, let's say $300. That's the same thing as saying $3 million. That's a lot of money. So I finally saved up enough money packing bags, and I bought the drum set, and my mother did buy my cymbals. So now I'm 18 years old. I have a drum set in my bedroom, and I'm practicing every day. And at the same time, I was in a drum and bugle course, so I'm learning my rudiments, and I'm just listening to everybody on the radio. And I came up with this practice technique because there was no money for lessons. So I would hear a song, and I would practice that song and record myself on my little cassette. And then I would play it back and try it again and see what I did wrong, which I didn't know at the time that I was actually training my ears. I didn't realize. I thought, this is the only way I know how to do it. And that's how it all kind of started with me with drumming. It was just a determination of not looking back. So for any young drummer that's out there that's getting, pushback from the family, I get it. I get it 100%. I know that parents just want you to be the best because sometimes when you're young, you're looking in the moment, and parents are looking at the future, and they want you to do the best for your future. So they might not have the same opinion of what you want to do. And then there are some parents that's like, listen, this is your life, go for it. But growing up in Black America, that wasn't always the path or the luxury for a lot of people. But my mother did back me up. She did. I had to persuade her, but she did back me up, and I worked my butt off. I practiced every day and put in the time and asked a lot of questions to people that were playing, so
you treated it like a job, essentially. Like in all the research you were doing, you put the same amount of effort and professionalism into that.
Absolutely.
One topic that comes up quite a lot with musicians, if you look deep within their soul and have a chat to them about it, is this idea of internal versus external validation. And often people who are experienced musicians play for internal validation as opposed to external validation. But a lot of young musicians are looking for the approval of others. And I just wonder, what's your journey been like on that tightrope? Did you start out perhaps even seeking your mother's, your mother said, okay, go ahead and do this, but, take it seriously. Did you play gigs thinking, okay, mum's in the crowd, I need to impress her, or did you always have internal validation? What was your journey like with those two?
First of all, that is an incredible question. So, and I thank you for asking. When I was learning how to play, and, again, I was practicing every single day. And when I wasn't practicing on my drum set, I was at drum corps, learning rudiments and playing in an ensemble, teaching myself how to read music and starting to write my own charts and just trying to get better and better and better. The validation part came because the people around me, everyone was older than me. All of the musicians, I was always the young guy. For years, I was the young kid. And there was one particular band that I started playing in with a guy named Ricky Williams. And Ricky Williams holds a very important part of my life, because Ricky was primarily a keyboard player. Right. But he played drums like you wouldn't believe. His pocket and his groove was better than everybody. And what made Ricky so special was his sound. And also Ricky was blind. Right. So Ricky went blind at 5 years old. He had, I believe, measles, and it caused blindness for him. Right. But his parents, I think, when I think back on it and just kind of look at it, they just gave him whatever he wanted because they felt guilty. And I think they felt responsible for him being blind. So he had a whole bunch of different instruments in his house. Yeah. But he gravitated towards the organ and the drums. So Ricky would play, and he would allow only me. He wouldn't let anybody else come to the neighborhood, from the neighborhood to his house, but me. And I would go up to his house. Ricky's 6'3", 6'4", and I'm a little kid, and he's playing drums, and I'm listening to his sound, and I'm going, man, his groove is so much better than everybody. So I would close my eyes to try to emulate what he was hearing or seeing within his mind. And I learned how to groove from understanding what he wasn't seeing, but what he was hearing. So I was very lucky. And then I ended up being in his band. So the part that you're talking about is Ricky said something to me that was, I guess, the foundation. He said, keep it in the pocket. That's all he said to me. I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I'm in school. I'm in high school. You got the coda, you got the first ending, you got the bridge. They didn't even say the bridge. First ending, second ending, coda. So it was all these musical terms. I never heard keep it in the pocket. I never heard take it to the bridge. I just didn't know what that was. But he said, Ralph, just keep it in the pocket. So next door was a guy named Tommy Green, and they shared a space. Tommy had his band. It was called the Tommy Green Machine or something like that. But he was a drummer. So when we went on break from practicing with Ricky, I was too embarrassed to ask Ricky what keep it in the pocket meant. So I asked Tommy. So I said, yo, Tommy, man, could you do me a favor and tell me what keep it in the pocket means? And he said, keep it in the pocket. You know what that is? He said, this is keep it in the pocket, brother. It's that 2 and 4. That's the pocket right there. Keep it in the pocket. So it was the appreciation as a drummer in the drum chair to hold everything together. It was basically the Clyde Stubblefield, James Brown approach. Keep it in the pocket. Keep the groove. James Brown told Clive, I don't need all of that extra stuff. Just keep it in the pocket. Keep that 2 and 4 happening. And then I realized that most of the drummers, maybe other than one or two that I really liked, were all groove drummers. Really like grooving hard drummers. Danny Seraphin, Clyde Stubblefield, Bernard Purdy. These were groove drummers. All the guys that came out of Motown just grooving. And then as time went on, I started, different music styles came about. But my thing was, I want the groove. I want to hold it down. That's how I was taught. And that's what I learned as a kid. And that's how I still think to this day. So that's why I feel there's a servitude to the music, depending on whatever music you're playing. You could be playing thrash metal. It doesn't matter. You just have to serve what is needed and necessary for the music. So if you come with the approach of what does the music need and not what do I need for people to look at me, then you will have a different connection to each and every song that you play. And I've been fortunate enough to play jazz. I've been fortunate enough to play funk, R&B, hip hop, all the different styles. And it's about immersing yourself into what is needed and necessary for those styles. I mean, there's no one that did it better than Bernard Purdie. There's no one that did it better, in my opinion, than Omar Hakim. And they all will approach and immerse themselves into each and every song that they're playing. So my thing is, okay, song, I'm having a conversation with this, okay, song, what do you need? What do you need from me? What is it that is okay? Let me take a listen. Let me figure this thing out. Let me get the foundation because I got a bass player that is counting on me to hold this thing down. And then I'm counting on him to hold it down with me to get the rhythm right. And if that's not right, and I'm doing all of this stuff, then that's not what the music is asking for. I hope you understand what I mean when I
totally
say
understand. Yeah, your servitude to the music.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be, where does that ego go? Or is it a case you don't feel you have that ego? So there will be some musicians who want to be heard and they want to have their moment to flourish. And there'll be others who are quite happy to not have that spotlight on them. Do you think it's a case that you are quite happy to not have that spotlight on you, even though obviously you now sing on Let's Dance and you have quite a big spotlight on you at the Chic shows? Or do you think that you are kind of putting that aside to a certain degree? Which do you think it is?
Well, for me, I never cared about look at me.
Yeah.
That's just never been in my wheelhouse. It's not something that I concerned my personal self with. It's like, look at me, look at what, I was always concerned about what is this song required of me doing? What is it asking me to do? And that's always been my thinking to this day. But there are times when you have to stand out because that's part of the show. That's absolutely fine too. You prepare yourself for that as well. But I think music evolves. And here's what's going on right now. I just need to say this. As music evolves, there are older musicians that do not like the evolution. Mm-hmm. They don't like the evolution. They don't like these young guns, these young gospel guys. They think that they're doing too much, which I don't know if that is necessarily true. I think that as music evolves, so does its style and its approach. And with that style and that approach, you adapt to that. For example, I had to play BET gospel. And I don't personally consider myself a gospel drummer. I don't. I'm not Aaron Spears. I'm not that guy. But when it was time to play BET gospel, I had to step up and do what was needed and necessary for the music to the best of my ability. Okay. Now, because I'm a well-studied musician and it's all about the music, I had to immerse myself into a different approach and style in order to serve each and every song, or I would not have been able to handle the gig at all. So there is an ego part with some musicians that sometimes can excel them, and sometimes they crash and burn. Like they're here today, then they're going tomorrow. And then there's that idea that I'm serving something so much more important than Ralph Rolle. That it's the song, it's the music, it's the vibe, it's the understanding of where and what and how and who I need to be and what I need to do within each and every song. And I hope you understand what I mean when I say that. So the ego part, of course, you see more of it now because there's more of a platform for people to see you. It's huge now. I mean, I didn't have YouTube coming up. You know what I mean? I can be virtual in 10 seconds if I want to and do whatever, to get people to look at me. But then when I get on the gig, do I know the music? Am I there on time? Am I prepared? Those are the things that are important, because a lot of times musicians get on these gigs after they've shown all of this stuff. And now you're in the moment and go, oh, damn, I don't know I am not ready.
Yeah.
And that's the part that is why I teach, honestly, because I want musicians, drummers, to be prepared, not only physically prepared, but mentally prepared. So sometimes, yes, it does take a little bit of an ego, depending on the situation. But mostly for me, if there was a scale between ego and humble, I'm going to the humble side. I want to humble myself to the music. And that's what will keep me working and has kept me working.
So you said it, that's so fascinating. I've got so many questions off the back of that. But the one that sticks out immediately is you said that when you are therefore in the spotlight occasionally, and the eyes in the room are on you, you said you have to prepare for that. My question related to that is, who do you become on stage that you aren't so much off stage? What part of your personality comes out on stage that perhaps we don't see so much off stage? And when you are under the spotlight, does it feel natural, or does it feel like it's something that you have to maybe put on, or how does that sit with you?
Let's go back to the beginning when I first started playing.
Mm-hmm.
First time in front of an audience, and I make jokes about it, when people ask that kind of question. I used to get butterflies in my stomach, which would cause major gas. So now I'm just being out. My stomach would turn over, and it's like, okay, 5 minutes of stage, and I'm like, I can feel the tips of my fingers getting numb and my heart's racing. I'm like, my stomach's going, and I'm like, this is not good. So I had to figure out a mental exercise to get away from that that anxiety, those butterflies, the stage fright. So what I did is I heard somewhere that someone said, focus on one person in the audience. It could be someone you know or someone you don't know, but just find that one person in the audience with a pleasant face or someone that you feel comfortable with, and just watch them and watch the people on stage that you're playing with. And then slowly but surely, as you start to play, your anxiety will slowly but surely start to disappear. And then the audience visual will start to open up, where it's not just one person anymore, but it's 2, and then it's 4, and then it's 8, and then it's 25, and then it's the whole audience of people. I think, again, one of the things I talk about in my masterclasses is the what if. There's a negative side of what if, and there's a positive side of what if. Most people lean more towards the negative of what if. And that's the debilitating part with a lot of musicians, that they find themselves not being able to get out of their own way. What if I play a wrong note? What if I come in with the groove wrong? Those are all absolute possibilities. But you got to remember one thing every single day. You are human. You are absolutely human. And with being a human, there is fault. You can make a mistake. It's just, how do you recover in the moment? How do you not let people know? And again, these are all the things that I teach in my classes. If you make a mistake and you're playing, 9 times out of 10, people don't realize you made a mistake. But if you show it on your face, like if you make a mistake and go, now everybody in the room is going, what happened? What just said? I think you made a mistake. You just put yourself on Front Street. I'll give you a perfect example. Nile Rodgers, one of the most accomplished musicians in the world on every level. We hear on stage if he makes a mistake. We hear on stage if I make a mistake. We hear on stage if Jerry or anyone else, Jerry Barnes, makes a mistake. We hear it. The audience, clueless. Totally clueless, because we're not gravitating towards what went wrong. And that's the part that you got to, as a musician, to learn to exercise away from. You will make a mistake. And if you realize that, it's not that you will approach the music in a more lackadaisical way, but you will realize the moment's gone. It's never coming back. I have more music to play. Let's get it together. Let's make it happen. And that's what happened. I mean, I'll tell you a story later on of something that happened on the Grammys that was amazing as far as not a mistake, but a technical error live with millions of people.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it now.
So again, I was asked by Nile Rodgers to do the tribute to David Bowie with Lady Gaga. And it was so funny because Sterling Campbell, who's a drummer for Bowie, is a very close friend of mine. Mm. And me being me, when Nile called me and said, listen, I'm doing a tribute on the Grammys to David Bowie, and I want you to do it. The first words out of my mouth, honestly, was, is Sterling Campbell not available? And I wasn't saying it to get out of it. I'm saying it because that's my dude. And this is David Bowie. And this is a tribute. So it just made musical and logical sense to me. But Nile went with who he knew, which was me. And I've been working with Nile at that point for probably close to 13, 14 years. So he said to me, you don't want to do it? And I said, no, of course I want to do it. I just want to, he said, no, I'm using my guys, to do this. And I think we'll kill it. And I said, cool, let's do it. So we get out to California. They put together this medley, Nile does, along with Russell, Russell Graham. And it's a really cool medley of David Bowie songs, right? It's a lot of tempo changes. It's a lot of movements. So in my ears, I have a click that I have to stay on. And the rehearsals are going great. There's a full horn section back there. It's a big band. And then there's dancers. But the other part was Intel, the computer chip company, had come up with this new technology where Lady Gaga had these sensors on her face, which made the graphics move across her face in the beginning to show all these different motifs of David Bowie throughout the years. It was really, really, really cool. But then the entire rest of the show was sequenced to the time clock, to the different tempos with the lights, and then her keyboard was on hydraulics. It's on my website somewhere where it shows the performance. But there was a lot of stuff going on. The great Raphael Sadiq is on bass. So we're doing the rehearsals. Rehearsals are killing. Every day is killing. I mean, incredible. We get to the day of the show. We do sound check, boom, it's killing. Time for the show. Ladies and gentlemen, doing a tribute to David Bowie is Lady Gaga and Nile Rodgers. Everything starts, I hear the click in my head. First song, ground control to Major Tom. Everything is great. Drums sound great. My drum tech, he killed it. Everything was incredible. So now when you're playing to a click, which we don't do with Nile Rodgers and Chic, we play open. When the drummer is in, the click almost disappears because you're so in time you can hardly hear it. And I'm like, oh man, this is great. I mean, this started out wonderful. And then I go, man, I am so in this click, I don't even hear it. So then I'm listening, I'm going, the click is gone. The click is gone, completely gone. So over stage right is my drum tech. And I look over at him and he could see on my face the panic. And he looks back at me and he goes, and I'm like, do we stop? Like, Nile is in now. Nile is in. I mean, he's grooving. Gaga's grooving. Sadiq everybody's grooving. And the show is going on. So I'm just going blind off of what we rehearsed. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like the worst day of my entire life, because if I fall out of tempo, this is going to be a disaster for years.
Yeah.
So now, mind you, at soundcheck, everything was fine. We finished the show. Right before the last two songs, the click came back in, and I was like a millisecond off.
Yes, nice.
A millisecond, but that honestly was because we had rehearsed so much that the tempos and everything was in me, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
So the tempos, it comes back. We finished the show. Russell, who was the one that had put together all the tempo changes, he flipped out. I've never seen Russell to this day, Russell Graham. I've never seen him that mad before or since. He was infuriatingly angry. I'm walking off stage like, I don't believe what just happened. I don't believe it just happened. I don't believe it just happened. But we got through the show. And on the upside, I've learned to try to find a lesson in everything. The good thing is I didn't panic. I just kept going, and it all worked out. Luckily, when you put in the time and you rehearse, when things go wrong technically, sometimes it can turn out to be okay. I have other stories, but that's the craziest one.
Yeah, I mean, but how close? You must have been quite close to saying, who would have made that call to say, right, actually, we've got to start the song again, which I'd imagine would have messed up the whole show because they have scheduled ad breaks and all this kind of thing. Were you close to saying, hang on, we've got to stop this?
I was. But I was so scared because I needed Nile to say it was okay.
Right.
And I didn't know if he had click. Come to find out, no one had click. No one, not a single person on that stage had the click.
What happened? So if it'd gone perfectly for the rehearsals, have you actually worked out so that doesn't happen again? Where did it go?
So what happened is just like we rehearse, the technical crews rehearse changeover as well. Because there's a director, there's a segment director, there's sound engineers, there's a backup to the backup. So all of these different moving parts. It just so happens when I finally found out from our guy who was running the Pro Tools session was somebody accidentally muted the click track, and they didn't realize it until my drum tech ran off, went to the truck, and said they don't have click, and that felt like an eternity. Which was only maybe like a minute or a minute and a half, but it was enough time that every organ in my body just stopped working. It's like but that's what it was. Someone accidentally muted the click track by mistake.
So easily done, and who'd have thought that that would have put you through so much turmoil? But well done for being there, a millisecond off it. That's an incredible, particularly if you're changing through different tempos.
We went through. I will find that that performance.
Yeah,
I'll send it over to you. But it was a lot. It was a lot of different tempo changes, and then you got to take into consideration that the lights were all connected. There was a big graphic. You'll see it.
One question I do have, you actually touched upon it because this was going to be one of my questions about how you build in flexibility, if you like, when you collaborate with people on stage, because Nile Rodgers obviously has many guests, and you kind of answered that, and you don't play to a click, so it's open. In regards to that, how do you therefore best communicate with each other on stage? Is it through facial expressions? Do you have a method of communicating so the audience can't hear? How do you decide, okay, this is where the song's going to next, if it's not to a click, and you're communicating on stage?
Okay, well, I'm personally as a drummer, because I know that my position is the one that is the band leader. Even if there's a musical director, the drummer is the band leader.
Yeah.
And I try to tell every single drummer that even when you have a musical director, the drummer is the band leader. Yeah. And the reason why I say that, because everyone is relying on your pulse, your tempo, your clock, your groove to get things right. Because if the drummer starts out wrong, it's kind of hard to recover from that area. So my preparation is to always have my notes, my music ready to go, especially if it's in a situation that is maybe like a one-off. I always, even if they give me charts, I will rewrite my own charts to make sure that my book is easy to turn. You know, it's ready to go. If there's any changes, I have all of my handwritten, take a photo in my iPad that I can change the PDF around if necessary. I have learned to be prepared. That is probably one of my strong suits, is to come prepared. You know, I want to know the groove. I'll put my notes on my chart. This is this kind of groove. This is whatever personal for myself. So when I start, people go, okay, it's right there. That will keep you working your whole life because people can rely on who you are, what you're doing. I have my metronome ready to go. I have multiple pencils and paper, and everything is always ready to go because I know that there are other people that would love to have your job. And if I'm not prepared, then they will look to somewhere else. You know, again, in my master classes, I do a segment on butt, and people, what is that? They say, well, listen, you don't want butt behind your name. Yeah, Ralph Roll is good, but they said, but what? Because that's all they hear is butt. They want to know, what is that butt? Yeah, he's good, but he wasn't prepared. He didn't really. All right, who else do you have? So just like that, just that quick, you went from having a gig to not having a gig because you got butt behind your name. I never wanted butt behind my name. Any musician out there, you want people to say, oh, he's good. Okay, cool, call him. That's what you want. That's what every musician wants, to be able to say, that's how you get the next call. That's how you be able to pay your cell phone bill. That's how you pay your car note. Those are the real life situations to be able to excel and thrive as a working musician. You know, what we sometimes get deterred from, especially now, is the social media part, where people can see one thing, but then what they're getting is something else. You want that to match. You want people to understand that what you see is what you get, because people talk. People talk. You don't, Chris is good, but man, okay, well, call somebody else. Unless it's an emergency and they can't get anybody but Chris. You get my point?
So absolutely, yeah.
So I never really worried about, am I the greatest drummer in the world? There's so many other parts that add up to, in my opinion, add up to being that great musician. Is he on time? Is he prepared? Do they have to wait on him? Is he high? Does he smell? All of these things are very, very important. And I used to question, why is it that some of the greatest drummers I know aren't working? But then when you ask questions, like, he's got a bad attitude. He can't get here on time. When he got there, we had to wait because he wasn't prepared. He was on the phone. We couldn't find him. It was just, all of those things count.
How do you deal with the situation where you are in a band, and you must have been in this situation, where different members of the bands feel the band overall need a certain amount of rehearsal, and that differs? So a good example of that, you probably have heard of, you know Tony Allen, who's Fela Kuti's drummer, sadly passed away. And I know that he was in a band called The Good, the Bad and the Queen with Damon Albarn, who was done Gorillaz and Blur and lots of other projects. And I know that through doing this process of the podcast, that one of the band members said there were different, like some of the band members wanted to rehearse so it's absolutely perfect. And Tony Allen was like, I've got my part down. I know what I'm doing. So I'm happy to have a few rehearsals, but why have I got to keep doing this? Which is a completely natural and understandable mindset to have as well. So how do you navigate that if you have some people who want a certain amount of rehearsal and others who don't? Have you been in that situation?
Absolutely. And I can tell you right now, and this is no secret, I hate rehearsing. I hate it. I hate it with a passion, especially when it gets into that repetitious thing where it starts to suck the life out of the music.
Yeah.
But in some cases, rehearsal is needed and it is necessary. So it all depends on who you're with, who you are, what you're doing, and and who's in charge. Nile, fortunately, is one of those people that he knows his band. He knows everybody, every singer, or, the technical, he knows everybody. And he knows that when he wants to get it done, it's going to get done. And it's going to get done in an expedient amount of time because he doesn't want to be sitting around for 4 or 5 hours. But everybody, every musical director, every person is different. There are some people who are very high up on the food chain that will tell you, you're going to get 2 hours out of me, and that's it. And after that, they'll pack up and they'll leave. It's like, if you don't got it, you don't got it.
Yeah.
And I've worked, I'm not going to say who they are, but I've worked with people like that. I kind of go, I get it. I've never taken that approach, but if you come prepared and your band is in a very prepared situation, then you can get things done in an expedient fashion without having to have so many rehearsals or so much time. And then, sometimes you have a musical director who is just insecure, who just wants to keep running stuff. And, for me, that becomes a little much. But if that's what I'm there to do within the time frame that I've agreed to, then that's what we're going to do.
You're a gifted and celebrated musician. Now, you've talked about the preparation that you do, and that's obviously, for me, that just sounds like the absolute bedrock of your career, and that's how you kind of, that's allowed people to speak well of you, which is probably creating more opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. What bad habits do you have, technically, in relation to your music that you'd still teach a young musician not to do?
What bad habits do I have? That's a hard one. When I first started playing, as I mentioned, I spent a lot of time learning my rudiments. I spent a lot of time learning the technical aspects of playing. And luckily I was around great mentors, Ricky Mangum, Ricky Williams, Bobby Craig. These are names you might not know, but these are names that impacted a lot of drummers and musicians that are working in many capacities. So I don't know I've never been asked that question, and I will have to think more about that. But I don't really know. I mean,
for instance, do you warm up your voice when you sing? So do you go through when you're, do you prepare the way you perhaps a singer should do for singing, or do you think?
What? We have a Russell Graham warms up before every show. He does these runs. Audrey Martell's our other singer. She'll do her runs, her different techniques. And Kimberly Davis is just a natural born beast. And all she'll either be super quiet before a show, or she listens to a certain, like music list, and she'll sing some songs. But she's just so naturally freaking gifted. Me, I'll do not a lot at all. I'll do a little bit of stuff. Mostly I'll stay quiet because I'm doing some backgrounds throughout the show. And then I'm emceeing in the show as well. So that will get me ready and open for when it's time to sing. Since I'm not really primarily a singer, I try to save my voice as much as possible.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because you come in on some of the, particularly when I watch the performance of a few performances of Let's Dance, your pitching is just so perfect. And it's really interesting that you're coming in at that stage. And that must be quite difficult to do if you're not warming up your voice. I know you're doing your backing vocals and the harmonies, but
it's good to have a good sound man. So you can be able to hear yourself. Hats off to Marco Della Torre. For me, I'm immersing myself in a character when I'm doing David Bowie. It has I think my total approach to the arts is I am morphing into what is needed for the song. It's never anything to do with me. I never approach playing from look at me or listen to me. It's like, this is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to do it my absolute best, whether I'm hyping the audience, singing a song, or playing a groove. It's all about that song. And that allows me to just totally immerse myself in the parts. One thing that I talk about in my classes is being a cop on the block. As a drummer, you have to remember all of the things all at once that have to be done. You got to worry about tempo. You got to worry about dynamics. You got to worry about what drum you're hitting at what time. It's almost like Pavlov's dog. You're leading the band with your fills. And if you continue to do those kind of fills, other people will now resonate with those fills, and it will only make things better because now they hear you're doing the same fill all the time. And they go, oh, okay. Like with Jerry and I connected like freaking Siamese twins. So if he does something, I'm going, oh, okay. And if he does it again, I'm like, okay, let me come back and, add something, to accentuate what he does. And he'll do the same thing with me. So when you hear us, it's like, how do they know that he's about to do that? To the point that if he's doing an improv in a solo, we are so tight as people that I can feel what he's going to do. And sometimes people go, did you guys rehearse that? I'm like, no, I just know what my boy's going to do. And that's that beautiful part of music where you get so immersed in a person and a song and a vibe that you just feel what's going to happen. You just anticipate what's going to go on.
What's one gig that you've played or concert or show that you've ever played that if you could, you would go back again and watch it from the audience's perspective?
Wow. If there was one show, I think it would probably be the Lady Gaga thing.
Yeah.
Because I would want to see the panic on my face.
Any other shows? What about if you can't have the Lady Gaga one? Is there any concert or show that you played that you thought, wow, that was such a night, or that was such a performance, or there was such an energy in the room that I would love to just go and stand at the back of the room and rewatch that?
Yes. Okay. So we did Glastonbury. We did.
I was there.
Okay.
I'm so glad you said that. I can tell you what it was like. It was great.
So it was a magical moment because the first time we did Glastonbury, we weren't on main stage. Yeah. And the founder of Glastonbury had seen our performance and said, when they come back, they're doing main stage for sure. Yeah. Now, it was a beautiful, sunny day. It was gorgeous. Barry Gibb came on right before us. Now, let me put you backstage. Barry Gibb is someone that everyone loves. The Bee Gees is a group that if you don't love the Bee Gees, there's something wrong with you. So he's backstage. I'm bugging out because I'm backstage with Barry Gibb. This is freaking crazy. And he's the nicest guy in the world. We get a chance to meet him. He comes on stage. He freaking tears the stage down. It was incredible. You had security dancing. It was like, so now my thing was, okay, this is cool. We're coming on after this. We gotta take it to another level. So we get on stage. It's the first time in probably 30 years that I felt a little bit of butterflies.
Wow.
Because of the excitement. The weather was pristine. Barry Gibb was killer. We're coming out. And when I walked on stage, when they announced the band, I walked on stage and I looked up and looked out into the audience. The audience literally went up and over the hill and disappeared. And I went, whoa. Right. So, and then there's cameras on my drums looking at me like big eyeballs. So I look over at Jerry. And as soon as I look at Jerry, I'm like, all right, it's go time. Let's do it. And I really wish that I could be out in the audience to watch that show because we had the crowd rocking. That was one great, great, great show.
It was so special because I can't think of a better person to go on after than Barry Gibb, and he was playing Bee Gees songs, right? And so the whole crowd were just, and it was the Sunday afternoon, so it's the last day of the festival. The sun was out, and it was just a party. It was just, and you had such an enormous crowd that went, as you say, all the way back, and the sound was great. That combination of Barry Gibb and Chic back to back is just absolutely ideal for.
Oh, it was phenomenal. It's one of those standout moments in my life that I will never, ever, ever forget. I actually met one of my idols. I got to meet, if you know Ringo Starr, please, I got to meet him. There's two people I want to meet. I want to meet Lulu and I want to meet Ringo Starr. Now, Lulu, actually, my manager hooked it up where a lot of people that I've admired over the many years, I don't know how she did it, but she got them to wish me a happy birthday, and they all sent videos. And she knows that I'm crazy about Lulu. And Lulu sent me a happy birthday.
Wow.
That I keep to this day.
I don't know. I know Ringo's daughter and her husband Jay, and I saw Lulu weirdly enough at Gatwick Airport Departure Lounge about a year ago, and I was trying to explain to my partner who's Lithuanian who Lulu was, and when Eurovision came on, I kind of said, okay, she had a big Eurovision song, she's done loads of other stuff as well, but that's really cool that she did a video for you. But if I can get a message to you to for you to meet them,
I started crying. I literally, when I saw her popped out, I just started crying. I was like, oh snap! How did she pull that off?
We'll begin to wrap up. I've got a couple more questions that I want to cover.
Yes, sir.
Our mutual friend who arranged this interview, so Woody from Bastille, who toured with you with Duran Duran, Chic, and Bastille last year, he sent me a WhatsApp just before we went live with this interview, which was to ask about Munchie, which I believe is he then said that dog has got more air miles than me. That's what he said as well. So tell us who Munchie is and how Munchie plays a role in Chic.
Munchie is basically the Nile Rodgers and Chic mascot. Munchie is Kimberly Davis's dog. I would say Munchie is 3 pounds, maybe wow. 3 pounds. Yeah, cutest little dog you ever wanted to see. But Munchie has been all over the world, all around the world. Platinum frequent flyer miles, sweetest little dog that everyone just falls in love with. So, Bastille probably ended up watching Munchie when we went on stage. I know that, many of the other band and crew know Munchie very well. And Munchie is just a mainstay when we travel, that's Kim's little baby, and we all love Munchie, and Munchie hangs out with all of us, and he's just cool, just a cool little dog,
And the other thing I need to ask you about, I referred to our intros. You've got a portfolio career because not only do you do the music stuff, but I've also been told about how incredible your cookies are, and they're so successful that you can buy them in Walmart in America. I think, is that right?
Yeah. So
where can we buy them in the UK?
So here's what's going on. Believe it or not, I am in the process right now of working with a gentleman who is he's in the food business, and we're working on a deal to bring the cookies over to the UK. So we're just trying to find the best location and the best partnership to bring the cookies over. And I think before the end of this year, I really believe before the end of this year, the cookies will not only be in the UK, but they will also be in Dubai.
Oh, nice.
So we're looking for Soul Snacks if you want to look them up. Eatsoulsnacks.com.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I started baking about the same time I started drumming. And grew the company along with my wife. She's the main person in charge. I'm the one that does the song and dance, and she does the nuts and bolts. And we've grown the company to where we have corporate clients, but again, it all goes back to that determination part. I'm just not one to talk myself out of things. If I feel it, like that first drop on a roller coaster, I got to do it, and I got to see it all the way through. And here's one very important thing that musicians need to understand. Success is not based on how much money you make. It's in finishing the thought. Finish the thought. Be a part of the adventure to understand what it takes to get to that final thought. The residuals of your success could be a beautiful career, whether you're a weekend warrior playing at clubs, or you're a writer where you're doing, soundtrack work or music or whatever. It's no magic trick. It's just hard work. And you got to put in the time. And the biggest one is get out of your own way. Don't second guess who you are. Every day, wake up understanding that that's you. And you can always make yourself better by working hard. And that big thing that I talked about, what if is dangerous? What if will back you into a corner where you got bricks and stuff that nobody built for you? You built it yourself. What if I don't sound good? What if that's why I asked a lot of questions to the people that knew, because that took away the value of what if, because they're the ones that, so how do you, like what you're doing right now with this podcast, the questions. How did you do da 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 da? Oh, okay. Jot it down. And how did you get that groove like that? What did you do? Oh, okay. Jot it down. By asking those folks that have done it. If you want to be great, hang out with the people that are great. If you want to be better, hang out with the people that are better than you. And it will always make you better. And the thing that is so great that I wish I had, you have the keys to the castle every time you open up your phone and every time you cut on your computer, because every single answer that you want is right in front of you. You don't have to wait for anything anymore. So if there's something that is an obstacle, there's no more obstacle. You got the keys to the castle. You can get across the moat. You got it all. You're right there in the building because you have it all right now. I mean, think about it. Your generation is the luckiest generation in the history of the world. Just because you have the ability to have a computer, to have access to everything. You can listen to jazz. How did he do that riff? Pause, go back, hit the cursor. Okay. You practice it. You videotape yourself doing it. Got it. Next. That's how you grow. No what ifs.
Thank you. And what's next for you? So what's coming up this year for you?
Well, another year of Chic travels and gigs. I am launching an app that I can't talk about yet.
Okay.
But what I can talk about is the fact that I've just been so passionate about teaching. I'm doing this thing called Drumming in 21 Days.
Oh, nice.
It's for beginners. It's for new drummers. I took many songs that are very popular, and I break down how they're played. I give you a little backstory on the drummer and how much it's sold and what the whole groove is about. And then at the end of every video, which to me is the most important part, I do a little motivational thing to try to get the drummer to get out of their own way and to see themselves in a positive light and a positive viewpoint. So it's called Drumming in 21 Days. It probably is going to launch in May.
And I guess we'll find that on your website, ralphrolle.com, right?
It will be, yeah. Drumming in 21 Days will be there. It's going to be a very affordable package. Yeah. But the point of it is it gives you all of those little techniques and motivations that can help you to be as great as you want to be. This is the beginning of it, and then you can go on to do more. But once you get your head right with these very fun songs, very nice motivational little things that I do there, it's going to be good. I think people are going to like it.
You've got a beautiful website, ralphrolle.com. It's just it's so well laid out. I've got it open on a separate screen here right now. Mm-hmm. Have I got an image of you playing with Prince?
I did. I played with him at New Orleans Superdome with Chic. He was actually headlining,
Right.
And they coordinated it where he came on stage when we were doing Let's Dance, and we jammed out, and it was crazy. Yeah, it was a nice moment there. Yeah, it was nice
that
meeting.
Not rehearsed, I guess? So it was a case that,
No.
did you have any? No, wow.
No, that was cool.
Well, last question for you. If I gave you the power to be president of the music industry for one day and you could make one change, what is the one change you would bring in to the music industry?
I would put music in every classroom in the world.
Yeah.
I would make music a very integral part of the curriculum. If I had the power, that would be the one thing that I would absolutely do. Music was taken out of, believe it or not, which is the craziest thing in the world, but during the Ronald Reagan presidency, he actually took the National Endowment and just kind of stripped the money from it. So music came out of schools, it came out of a lot of programs. And you know what made it so odd is that Ronald Reagan was an actor.
Yeah.
So,
he worked in the arts. He worked in the arts and he stripped away the arts.
So it was just strange to me that it was taken away. And I think it changed the trajectory of a lot of people in how they grew. You know, it just kind of sucked the artistic part out of America, which I really believe it has been a detriment. So if I had that luxury for one day, that's what I would do. Every classroom, every school would have some form of a music program.
It's a great answer because some of the stuff I do away from the podcast, which listeners will know, is I do training and support. I'm an instructor around supporting people around mental health and how to enable mental health. And one of the interesting bits of research that we found was that we have a list of kind of risk factors, and the key protective factor, or one of the key protective factors, is exposure to arts and culture. And if you strip that away, it's going to be it increases the likelihood of someone experiencing poor mental health later on in life. So very interesting around a lot of governments, unfortunately, if the purse strings are tight, they generally go to the arts and culture and strip away funding in that area, and that is problematic. And I totally agree that would be great if we could get it into every school. So I think that's a great answer. Listen, I want to thank you for appearing on the StageLeft podcast. Thank you for your wisdom, your insight, your advice that you've given to young musicians. You've inspired so many musicians so far, and you will continue to going forward. I wish you the best of luck with what is to come this year. So the new stuff that you're going to have on the website, that 21-day class sounds really interesting. The cookies traveling across the pond, that's going to be exciting for you, and the Chic shows as well, and all the best. And thank you so much for passing on your wisdom and being such a great guest on the StageLeft podcast.
Chris, thank you for having me, man. This is really cool. You asked some really cool questions, man. Some stuff I've never been asked before. That's really cool.
That's the idea.
I think your being a dad is going to be just easy for you.
I hope so.
I think so. I believe so.
That's really kind. Thank you so much, Ralph. Cheers.
That was great questions, man. Really good questions. Wow.
I pride myself on that.